Shalom and welcome back to Israel with Aline. Today we came to the top of the Golan Heights in Israel to visit the giant fortress of Nimrod. Let's find out who Nimrod was, one of the most mysterious characters in the entire Bible, and find out what his connection to this place is. So if you're ready, let's get started. But who was Nimrod? The Bible tells us that he was a great king and conqueror and that he was a descendant of Cush and Ham, as it is written in Genesis. And Cush begot Nimrod. He began to be mighty on the earth, and he was a mighty hunter before the Lord. And the beginning of his kingdom was Babel, Erech, Akkad, and Calneh, in the land of Shinar. From this same land came Assyria, and he built Nineveh, Rehoboth-ir, Calah, and Rezin, between Nineveh and Calah. And now let's go in and discover more about this fortress. Come with me. And looking at this view, we understand why the fortress was built here. We are 820 meters high, and some of the most important trade routes of the ancient world passed through here. From here, there were routes to Tyre, Tiberias, and also the road to Damascus passed through here. And that's why whoever controlled the mountain and its fortress controlled the roads and the armies that passed through here, as well as the taxes that were collected in the region. Today we came to Nimrod Fortress by car, but imagine making this whole journey on foot in ancient times. We finally arrived at the entrance of the fortress, and what's the first thing we see here? Look at this little room and come in with me to find out what's inside. The first clue is what's on the floor here. Right underneath me there was a hole, and maybe you guys have already guessed, this was the bathroom. After a long journey, people would arrive here and take care of all their needs. After using the bathroom, there were more comforts here. So look at what's here on the side as well. So here, this area here, this complex was the cistern. I mean, this is a water reservoir, and people could come here to drink water after the long journey they had. But the most interesting part is here. Do you see this arch, this entrance gate here? Let's enter the fortress together. Look here, there are two stones that seem to be falling that have come out of their original position. Why did this happen? Who here can guess? Maybe people will leave it in the comments now. And the answer is because of the many earthquakes that have happened here throughout history. Since Israel is at the meeting point of tectonic plates from biblical times to modern times, many earthquakes have happened here in this region. One example was the great and tragic earthquake that happened in Turkey and Syria, which are not very far from here. And we are still here in Israel praying for the victims of this terrible tragedy. In Israel, earthquakes have also been felt in recent weeks, including a 4.1 magnitude earthquake. But thank God, despite the earthquakes that have happened here in recent weeks, there have been no injuries or material damage in Israel. But in the past, yes, and that's why These stones here are witnesses to the great earthquakes that happened in the region. These stones have been like this, almost falling since medieval times. And through this gate, we are now going to enter Nimrod Fortress. But the question that comes up is, when is this fortress from? Because if we look at the stones that were used in the construction, they are gigantic. And guys, the ones you're seeing behind me right now, they're actually smaller than the ones we're going to see later. It really took a colossal force to build this fortress, especially at 820 meters of altitude. And the experts haven't been able to reach a consensus on when the fortress was built. There are some theories. One of them is right here. If you look behind me now, there's an inscription. You can see that it's written in Arabic and was made in the year 1275 by Baybars, who was a leader of the Mamluk Empire, one of the Arab empires that invaded Israel and the empire that expelled the Crusaders from the Holy Land. So one theory is that the fortress was built by the Mamluks. Other experts believe that it is older, that it dates back at least to the Crusader period. But many of the locals who live here believe that the fortress is much older than that. We're so high up that it's actually windy here, and look at the fortress. It's really long. It's 150 meters wide, but more than 400 meters long. And here we can really get a better idea of just how colossal it is. And now we're going to go together into the underground of the fortress of Nimrod. Even the temperature drops as we go down to this part. And here we can see what they call the shooting windows. Come with me, let's see the windows. This opening gives a strategic advantage to those inside the fortress, because from here we have a great view of everything happening outside. People could use bows and arrows, cannons, and the weapons of the time to shoot outside from here, but for those outside it was much harder to shoot and hit right inside the windows. And that gave a strategic advantage to those who were inside. And here we see the Migdal Ayafe, which means the beautiful tower, and we can really see that it is beautiful. Originally, of course, it was much taller, and here we can also see the cornerstone. And look where we're walking, it's full of trees and oaks. And that's why all around us there are also little fruits here all the time. And the ones who knew about this were the soldiers here in the Middle Ages. They spent months here, sometimes years of their lives, and yes, there were many wars, but most of the time it was peaceful. And that's why they had a lot of time on their hands, and they would pick these little fruits to play games. One example is down here, carved into the rock. You can see a Mancala game, and the little fruits were used as the pieces on the board. And now I want to know from you all if any of you know the rules of this game and are used to playing it. Even though it's a very ancient game, there are still many people today who play with it. But now I'm going to take my little souvenir piece and let's move on, because we're now heading to the central part of Nimrod Fortress. Right now, I literally feel like I'm on top of the world. Just look at how windy it is here. We are at the highest point of Miftar Nimrod, which means the tower, the fortress of Nimrod. And in Arabic, it's also known as Kalat Namrud. But what does this place have to do with the mysterious character named Nimrod? The Bible doesn't tell us much about him, but it does tell us that he was a great king and conqueror who began ruling in Babel. Now, apocryphal and ancient texts say that he is the same king who started the construction of the Tower of Babel, a gigantic tower that was meant to reach the heavens. In fact, Flavius Josephus talks about this. Now it was Nimrod who incited them to such an affront and contempt for God. He was the grandson of Ram and the son of Noah, a bold man and of great strength. Little by little, he turned the state of things into a tyranny, claiming that the only way to turn people away from the fear of God was to make them continually dependent on his own power. He threatened to take revenge on God if he ever tried to flood the earth again, because he would build a tower higher than the water could reach and would avenge the destruction of his ancestors. The people were eager to follow this advice, believing that submitting to God was a form of slavery. So they set out to build the tower, and it rose quickly beyond all expectations. It was built of burnt brick, cemented with mortar made of bitumen, so that it would not let in water. When God saw that they were acting so foolishly, he did not decide to destroy them completely, since they had not become any wiser from the destruction of the former sinners. But he caused a commotion among them, producing various languages in them, and making it so that because of the multitude of these languages, they could not understand each other. So Nimrod is associated with rebellion against God, and there are several apocryphal texts that talk about this, texts that are not included in the Bible. But is that really why he is such a mysterious character? Because the Bible gives us so few details, and we have to put together a puzzle to understand who he really was. But because of that, we are not absolutely sure when this fortress was built. But those first people who built this giant fortress named it in honor of Nimrod. The rebel who wanted to reach the heavens, just like this fortress that still stands here in the skies of Israel to this day, seems to defy the laws of nature and God. And now we're going back to the underground tunnels of Nimrod's fortress, to what is known as the secret passage. So, come with me. Be careful because the steps are very steep. But what were these secret tunnels used for? There are a few theories. The first is that it was a route to escape from the fortress, in case it fell into enemy hands, and also to launch attacks and surprises. Just imagine the enemies surrounding the fortress, thinking that the soldiers are inside, but they could come out and catch the enemy soldiers from behind and destabilize their entire force. But let's keep going down. There's more. And here is the end of the secret tunnel, this secret passage that led to the outside of the fortress. And look at the size of these stones, how heavy they are. They're really gigantic. Look at the size of this one, this one, this one, this one, this one. They are the oldest stones in the entire fortress. And again, we are not sure about their dating. What we do know is that they had to be lifted. Tons of stones were lifted to build this colossal passage. And one more thing that catches our attention. This is a secret passage, guys. We imagine that a secret passage has to be a small entrance. And doors in general are small in the ancient world. Usually they're about my height or even shorter. And suddenly we see here a passage that should be small and hidden, but it's also gigantic. And it's part of one of the many mysteries of this fortress. Who built it, when it was built, and why it was built. But without a doubt, it was one of the most interesting places in Israel and as mysterious as Nimrod, who gave his name to this fortress. I hope you enjoyed today's tour. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more videos straight from Israel. Kisses and see you next time.